So what if you do have really, really high cholesterol? What is the solution there?
Good question. So look at over here, this like 300, it increases your risk of death by a small amount. You're up to the 1.4, like 1.3 level of the average risk of death. So you have a moderately higher risk of death from having a cholesterol of 300. And that's a pretty high cholesterol. And so what should you do? Do you know what? There is a simple way to handle this. And that is to have a very high fiber diet. If you eat a lot of fiber, and by fiber, I mean soluble and insoluble fiber. So fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, peas, lentils, they're all wonderful sources of fiber. And root vegetables are great. And mushrooms are really good. And so you add in this really high fiber diet, and I mean like 40 grams a day or more. And if you think that the average American gets about 9 grams a day, 40 grams is a lot. It's a lot of food. Like think about an orange is about 4 grams of fiber. And that means you would have to have 10 oranges a day to get your 40 grams, right? Or you get 4 cups of beans is about 40 grams. You get about 10 grams in a cup of beans. Depends on the beans, but like black beans are really good with fiber. So a high fiber diet is kind of hard.
Hello, guys. Welcome. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. All right, looks like we're working. We are live streaming on Facebook. I am back in South Dakota. If you guys were on last week, all of us were in Arizona. It was lovely. That webinar hasn't been posted, but it was a fun one. And our whole team was in Arizona. It was great. And then the weather back home, I'm actually in South Dakota. It just got crazy here. And so our flight got canceled. And so we had to stay an extra day. I missed my daughter's Christmas concert. It was so sad. But now we are in some crazy weather alerts as well again. So we're going to get more snow and more wind and hello Midwest winter. But you know what? It's really beautiful for Christmas. So I'm okay with it for now. We don't have to do anything for the next couple of days. So
Dreaming of a white.
Yes, it's exactly what it's like. I should try to turn my camera so you guys can see. It is beautiful. I don't know. I have an entire desktop camera here, so I don't know that it's going to work. You can probably barely see some snow coming down.
It looks very white out there.
Yep, it's glowing because there's so much white. There's no other color. But it is really pretty. How are you, Dr. Saunders?
Great. It's a great day.
Good. So tell us where you are today.
Santa Barbara. Well, I'm in Goleta actually, which is just north of Santa Barbara. So it's beautiful. It's not a white Christmas, but it's beautiful.
It's good to have it all. I mean, I like the snow, but boy, do I like the sun and warm weather, maybe a little more. So, okay, you guys, today is going to be a really good webinar. Joe, I'm not sure that Joe's going to hop on today. He may at some point, but we are going to be talking about cholesterol. And this is, we get lots of questions about this. As you guys know, if you've been on the webinars, this comes up a lot where people are asking different things. And today we're going to talk about, what's good cholesterol, what's bad cholesterol, why does it matter? And is there any relation to type 2 diabetes? And so we're going to talk about all the things. Dr. Saunders is going to share some information with us. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A for all of you. So for those of you on the Zoom, feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. That's the best place for me to manage those. And then on Facebook, feel free to post in the comments. I'll do my best to get to as many of those as possible. I also just realized I forgot to mention my Christmas sweater. Isn't it lovely? It's Christmas week. My kids are home. We'll be hosting some family here for Christmas and doing a little bit of traveling, but it will be wonderful. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week as well. Let's go ahead and do a disclaimer, Dr. Saunders, first, and then we can jump right into it.
I always have to do a disclaimer.
I know.
Okay.
So good.
So we disclaim any responsibility for you for the use of this information. Okay, so we're giving information for general audience use, and so it's important that you check it out and see if it applies to you, because for some people, when I'm talking about, in type 2, you got to cut out all the carbs and get off insulin. And then for type 1, that's not going to apply. You still need insulin. So, you have to apply it to your situation and specifically, and not just take everything you hear as, oh, that's what the doctor said, so I should do that. Okay?
Perfect.
So
let's do it.
Okay. So cholesterol. Cholesterol is a very misunderstood chemical. First of all, people think it's fat. It's not fat. It's a lipopolysaccharide. I'm sorry. It's a lipoprotein. It's actually a protein with a lipid attached to it. And so yes, there is some fat associated with it, but that's not primarily what it is. It's a protein, and it is required for cells. You can't make a cell without this cholesterol. Cholesterol is what stabilizes the cell membrane. So you can't have just a lipid bilayer and make a lipid into a cell and have it be stable. It's just too unstable. It can break apart really easily. And so the cholesterol keeps things stable. So it's necessary, and it's so necessary that without it, everything disappears and doesn't work and would die. So actually, you would die faster if I were to take all the cholesterol out of your body than if I were to take all the oxygen out of your body, because you can run on no oxygen for a little while. You can do anaerobic respiration, which many of your cells are able to do. But without cholesterol, everything just falls apart. It's gone. So you don't have anything. So cholesterol is essential, but that's just for structure. So your brain is made out of cholesterol. The insulation around the wiring of your brain, all the white matter, that's all made out of cholesterol. Your hormones are made out of cholesterol. That's really important. Some people were worried about their testosterone going low, men worried about their testosterone going low if they took a statin drug. So they tested it. And guess what happens? You have testosterone here, cholesterol here. You take a statin drug, the cholesterol drops down. What happens to testosterone? Goes right down with it. So, it drops. So yeah, you can deplete your body of those supportive hormones if you get rid of cholesterol. But not just testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, pregnenolone, DHEA, all these really important supportive hormones for your body are dropped or lessened when you don't have enough cholesterol, or when you block the enzyme that makes the cholesterol. Because every cell in your body has to make cholesterol. So also coenzyme Q10, CoQ10, your body makes that out of cholesterol. It's not a vitamin. You don't have to eat it. We make it. But if you don't have enough cholesterol, then you don't make as much of it. If you don't make as much of it, you don't have enough energy. So it can decrease your energy and increase your oxygen creation of oxygen-free radicals without enough CoQ10. Also, vitamin D. D is in dog. That vitamin is cholesterol. Actually, is what it is. It's a dihydrocholesterol or dehydrocholesterol that is in the top layer of skin that ultraviolet light comes and makes into what we call vitamin D, or the precursor for vitamin D. And so that cholesterol is necessary for the production of vitamins, structure, hormones of all kinds. So if you knew how important cholesterol was, then it would be really easy not to buy into the diatribe that you constantly hear about lower cholesterol is better. No, in this case, less is not better. There is an optimum level. And actually there was a research done recently in Korea, and it is the largest study ever done. And it proved what had been seen in all of the studies before. So all the studies before show a J curve. I actually have a copy of this. Here. So all of the studies before show this kind of a curve where you have the death rate on this side. So that's 1 times the death rate. That's 2 times the death rate. So your death rate's going up as your cholesterol right here is dropping down. But it also goes up as it goes up. So it's important to understand that that too much cholesterol is bad, but too little cholesterol is just as bad or worse, because you actually have you never really, even 300 cholesterol doesn't get you up to twice the death rate, like being at 120. So what you really want is this, the optimum range right there from 210 to 250, that range right there. That's where you really want to be, because every study has shown that. Everyone. Why? Why is that so important? Well, I already told you why. Your brain's made out of cholesterol. If you don't have enough, guess what you get? Dysfunction of the brain, whether it's Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, you get multiple sclerosis. All of these issues, if you don't have enough cholesterol, then you're more likely to get those. Hormone support prevents you from getting actually diabetes. So we're talking about diabetes, and we need vitamin D to be sensitive to the insulin so that you don't get insulin resistance. Wow. So in Synachroma, we put vitamin D in the Synachroma. People say, why do you put vitamin D in Synachroma? Number 1, it's a common deficiency. And number 2, it makes you sensitive to insulin. So it improves insulin sensitivity. So you need the cholesterol to make the vitamin D. There is so much that is important with cholesterol that the death rate goes up if your cholesterol drops down. So that's an important thing to remember. So we don't recommend that you get your cholesterol below 200, because that's when the actual death rate starts going up.
But it seems like people are going to the doctor now, and even at 200, they're being told, oh, way too high. I mean, what is typically happening? You know, patients that you've have seen who've maybe seen another doctor. What is the normal range, you know, in the medical community? What do they say is the normal range? Is it what you're saying?
No, essentially below 200. And that's for a different reason. So what the drug companies did is they separated out cause of death. So I'm going to show you the other graph. And this is the common one. This is the the Mr. Fit study. And this is a very large study, 500,000 men. And it's the exact same thing. The death rates over here, the cholesterol levels over here. And if you look at all-cause mortality, you see the same thing. As the cholesterol gets lower, the death rate goes up, right? You see that. That's the all-cause mortality, total death rate. So what the drug companies did is they took this part, the blue, out, and they look only at cardiovascular mortality. And look at that. Cardiovascular mortality drops down until you get to right around 120. Then it starts going up again. And so by parsing out one section and saying, if you just look at cardiovascular mortality and ignore the fact that people are dying at a higher rate, and just say you're less likely to die, then the lower numbers below 200 is even better. And so that's it's a way of lying that's not actually lying. It's sort of lying by withholding some important information. So that's why they say less than 200. It's right there on the graph. It's all there. What
are the typical drugs that are given to people?
So typically the most common ones are the statins. In fact, the marketing for statins has been so good and so well done that I talked to a cardiologist not long ago who said, you know what, these drugs are so good, they should be put in the water. Like everybody should be taking them. It should be like, everybody should be drinking statin water because they're so good. And this is a cardiologist. He's a specialist. So what does he see? He just sees just this, that, you know, the cardiovascular mortality is dropping lower and lower. He never, ever sees this. In fact, this study right here was published in a science journal, which means a doctor won't see it for 30 years. So it's going to be 3 decades before this is going to be seen by any cardiologist. I had one of my patients, I showed it to him and he took it to his cardiologist. He says, this is why I don't want to be on the statin. And the cardiologist looked at it and said, I've never seen that. I don't believe it. You know, rather than looking in Nature scientific reports, because it's a science journal, it's not in a medical journal. So nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to look at it. It's going to take a long time before it becomes the standard, before people are taught that science. And, you know, that's kind of typical of everything. Everywhere you go, the science is, or the understanding, the knowledge is decades ahead of whatever's being taught in colleges, for example.
Wow. So what if you do have really, really high cholesterol? What is the solution there?
Good question. So look at over here, this like 300, it increases your risk of death by a small amount. You're up to the 1.4, like 1.3 level of the average risk of death. So you have a moderately higher risk of death from having a cholesterol of 300. And that's a pretty high cholesterol. And so what should you do? Do you know what? There is a simple way to handle this. And that is to have a very high fiber diet. If you eat a lot of fiber, and by fiber, I mean soluble and insoluble fiber. So fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, peas, lentils. They're all wonderful sources of fiber, and root vegetables are great. And mushrooms are really good. And so you add in this really high fiber diet, and I mean like 40 grams a day or more. And if you think that the average American gets about 9 grams a day, 40 grams is a lot. It's a lot of food. Like think about an orange is about 4 grams of fiber. And that means you would have to have 10 oranges a day to get your 40 grams, right? Or you get 4 cups of beans is about 40 grams. You get about 10 grams in a cup of beans. Depends on the beans, but you know, like black beans are really good with fiber. So a high fiber diet is kind of hard to do. And then the studies are done with a high fiber and low fat diet. So you would even avoid things like meat and coconut oil and oils. So like you're having a salad, you're going, oh boy, there's a lot of fiber. A whole plate of salad, like lettuce and vegetables, is about 4 grams of fiber. It's really not that much. And then you put a dressing, a salad dressing on it, and you add all that oil to it. And that makes it not as good for you, actually. So if you just did like vinegar and spices to make your dressings instead of putting oil on them, then you get the benefit of the fiber, and then you won't have the problems with the excess oil. So you can't avoid getting oils. You're always going to get essential fatty acids. In fact, if you ate grass has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. That's why you want grass-fed beef, right? Because the grass has omega-3s, so the beef's going to be omega-3s. If you feed the beef corn, then it's going to have corn oil, which is high in omega-6 and low in omega-3, and that causes more inflammation. So that's why, that's the grass has oil, and so does all the vegetables. All the vegetables that you're eating have oils of some kind in them, but most of them are the good kinds of oils. And so you don't need to add any. You don't need to add like olive oil or coconut oil or sunflower oil or whatever, for the most part. So
Okay.
that's the best thing to do.
Okay. So it really sounds like cholesterol isn't quite as big of a deal as we often make it out to be, which is interesting. I think we did a webinar on cholesterol like 100 episodes ago. So it was a long time ago. And I think it's called the cholesterol hoax is what we called it. And it's always good to review this information. It's really important. And I'm just thankful that you're willing to tell us the truth, because we don't get to always hear it. So thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Well, the truth so far as I know it.
Yes, that's good. Yes, true. But you do see a lot of patients, and you get to see what happens.
And I do a lot of research too, and I research science journals. So I look for the stuff that's not going to be seen in medical schools for 20 or 30 years.
It's just so crazy to me. Oh, yeah. We are starting to get some questions in here, guys. If you have questions, feel free to post those in the Q&A. Anything else you want to mention about cholesterol? Any correlation, I guess, anything with cholesterol and type 2 diabetes?
Well, yeah, people tend to have higher cholesterol with type 2 diabetes. But actually more important is that their triglyceride levels go up, and that's the fat. The triglycerides is the oil, that is the fat. And that is an indicator. So when you do a test and on your cholesterol, and they do a lipid panel, and they say, oh, your cholesterol is 210 and your triglycerides are 180. Well, that's a lot of triglycerides. That's a high level of triglycerides. And what that means is that your insulin resistance causes higher insulin and blocks your cells from using fat for energy. So you get these higher triglycerides because the insulin won't let the fat be used for energy. So it's important to bring the triglycerides down. And that is actually a much better goal to have, is how do I get the triglycerides down? And the cholesterol will take care of itself at that point. So as your insulin goes down, insulin's a growth factor and tells your liver make more cholesterol. But so as your insulin resistance goes down, it's just going to naturally, your cholesterol is going to go down just naturally. It's just organically going to drop. And so you're burning fat for energy. And that's exactly what phase 1 of our program does. Phase 1 is you take out all the carbs so that you have to burn fat. You're forcing your body to burn fat. So what are you burning? Triglycerides. So you start burning the triglycerides, start using them, you bring them into your cells, the blood levels drop, and then the insulin drops because you don't need insulin to burn triglycerides. In fact, insulin prevents you from burning triglycerides. So the insulin goes down, the triglycerides go down, and then because the insulin's down, it just naturally drops the cholesterol as well. So everything comes back to normal when your metabolism is functional.
Very interesting. Okay. Couple things. This is the diabetes solution kit that Dr. Saunders was talking about. There are 3 phases in this. You can purchase this online, but this is what you'll hear referenced on the webinar quite often. So you can find it. Go to bartonwebinar.com. You'll find more information about all of that stuff. But here's a really interesting question. Let's see. It says, Queen Tafari says, lab work shows cholesterol should be 100 to 199. That's what hers says. Mine is 158. Should I try to increase my cholesterol?
You know what? That is, I hate that question. That's a great question. So if you look at, this is 12.8 million adults. So this is a lot of people. And if you look at 150, that's right about here. That's about the same death rate as having 300 cholesterol. So, as far as the death rate goes. So should you bring your cholesterol up, and how should you do that? I don't have an answer to that, because there's a variability in it. And especially like in women, women have a much wider range of normal than men do. Men have a really narrow range. Their cholesterol, these stars kind of have this little line and then that tells you how wide that the 95 percentile is, and that there's very little there, and that's mostly the men. But the women were tested too, and young women especially. If their cholesterol was 120, 100, 150, it wasn't any different from being 200 or 250. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you should try to bring your cholesterol up. I don't know.
Okay. It says, is 102 triglyceride good?
Yeah, 102. So ideally you want it to be under 150, and around 100 is great. Yeah, that's a good number.
Okay. Another question: how much Synachroma should you take daily?
1 in the morning, typically. If you have any evidence of, like if you have really high blood sugar and difficulty controlling the blood sugar, you could take 1 in the morning, 1 at night. Your purpose for Synachroma is not to control your blood sugar. That's not what it's for. Yes, the cinnamon does help with that, but more for stabilization so you don't have spikes. The cinnamon is not, people are often saying, well, if I take Synachroma, can I get off metformin? Well, yeah, but you should get off metformin anyway, but the Synachroma is not a replacement for metformin. The Synachroma, the reason for the cinnamon is just for stabilization. It's really all the other things, the nutrients that help your body to just function normally, to have normal metabolism. That's what you're looking for with Synachroma, just to come to normal metabolism. So taking more pills a day to control your blood sugar, don't even think about it. But you can take up to 2 a day. So people who are having difficulty controlling, you can take 2 a day.
Okay. I did post a link. You can go to Barton Webinar or Barton Nutrition. Code webinar25 will save you 25% on all of our products. Dr. Saunders really, when we talk about type 2, if you're new here, he really, I'd say the first thing he would tell you to purchase would be this, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be anything else. And the program is mostly done through your diet, stress relief, and kind of just, I feel like this book helps you to figure out how your body works best. And it's really simple, but you got to do the work. So this is where he tells you to start. The supplements are added things, but Barton Webinar is where you can find a link to this book. You can get this hard copy, or if you want it now right away, you can also get a digital version. So there you go. There's my little quick plug there for the Diabetes Solution Kit. And then again, if you didn't see me holding up Synachroma, this is our most popular supplement. We have a lot of people on our Barton Nutrition team, and I don't think anyone actually has type 2 that I know of, but we all take this because all of the ingredients in here are things that we would be taking anyway. So it's all really good stuff. Okay. I'm going to try to go back through some of these here. I love it. Here's a good question. What are the best vitamins? Let's talk about this. We haven't talked about this in a while. Do you take a multivitamin, Dr. Saunders? And do people need a multivitamin?
Yes, I do. And I don't take it regularly or daily. I take it once, maybe twice a week. And so my idea about vitamins is ideally I should get all of my vitamins from food. Now, having said that, that's an ideal that is really hard to get to. And one of my friends is making a supplement that is a smoothie powder. It's a powder that you put in your smoothie. And the powder has all naturally sourced vitamins. And he had to go to great lengths to find like zinc in a plant source. And so it's really hard. It's really hard to get everything you need from your food. So here's my thoughts as I research vitamins, and I see that 1 a day is really a marketing tool and doesn't really have anything to do with health. They didn't do any research on that. If you take the same vitamin every single day, it seems like it stops working. And so it's not useful anymore. And they've actually done studies with magnesium where they give people a dose of magnesium And over a period of only 90 days, it drops down. They're only getting 30% by the end of 90 days of that magnesium. They're only absorbing because they draw the blood and find out how much is in the blood. And so it made me think about it and looking at other things that say, oh, you need intermittent, like high amounts. And then I read this book that was really great. I don't remember the name of the book on seasonal eating. So,
that's what I was just going to ask you. That's so interesting.
Yeah, the apples come ripe, in what, August? Yeah. And in October they're gone. So during those 2 months, what are you eating? Apples, like 5 apples a day. I don't know. And then you're having apple pastries and apple pie and apple whatever.
No, you're not. You're not doing that. You're not doing
that. Okay, none of that. But apple crisp, I love. Okay, so what happens when you're eating all this apple? You're getting a lot of quercetin. You're getting a lot of vitamin C. You're getting a lot of bioflavonoids that you're not going to get from other kinds of foods. You're getting a lot of fiber, pectin, various things that you're not going to get from other foods. But then in October, the apples are gone. So during that season, you're getting a ton of this nutrient. And then afterward, let's say winter comes on now after October, right? There's no more apples. So you got to go shoot a deer. So then you live on deer meat. Well, meat has almost everything you need except not vitamin C, but you just had a bunch of apples, like you were living on apples for a couple of months. So you had a ton of that. And now you're getting a ton of other things like CoQ10 and vitamin B12 that you weren't getting from the apples. So that's like seasonal eating. I thought about that. I thought, there's something to that because absorption happens best when it's intermittent, when you have a lot of something and then none, and then a lot of something and then none. Because if you don't have those times off, those periods off, then your body starts getting accustomed to something and you stop absorbing as much of it. And that's like the magnesium study, for example, showed that. And other studies with herbs have shown that too, like the wormwood study for malaria. So that's why I take periodically high dose vitamins. And currently the one I use is Empower Plus, and I've had most of my family on it. True Hope is the company. And I've had a lot of patients try it, and it really works. I've had people with schizophrenia get completely off their drugs just using that vitamin. I've had people with bipolar completely off drugs and feeling normal just on that vitamin. So I know it works, so I use it, but and it's pretty high dose. So I just take it once or twice a week.
And it's like a multivitamin.
It's a multivitamin, yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Good stuff. Okay. Emmanuel is asking, I have does the fiber green clear clogged arteries? And does the heart health supplement clear clogged arteries also?
Okay. The answer is no. And that's the same kind of thing. Don't expect a pill to clear clogged arteries. So people have said, oh, you can dissolve the cholesterol in your arteries with choline, right? Or phosphatidylserine or whatever those, because they are, they're emulsifiers. Well, they don't work in the body that way. And that's not an issue. So can you clear clogged arteries is the next question, the follow-up question. And that is, yes, you can. But that was with like the Dean Ornish diet. Very high fiber, low fat diet will over time clear out clogged arteries.
Very interesting. All right, let me scroll up here. We have a lot of people on today. Hello, everyone. Okay, I think that's it for questions over here. Okay, this is a message from Don. He said, I am the guy who about a month ago asked about angioprime or prim as an oral chelation. You mentioned another product you felt was better, and I've lost my notes. Can you mention it again?
Okay, so it depends on the reason for chelation. So if you're trying to get mercury out of your body, the best way to chelate it out is with cilantro and chlorella. Chlorella is a blue-green algae, and cilantro, some people just love. And if you love cilantro, you know what? I recommend you take it, eat it periodically. I always have a bun of cilantro in my refrigerator, and I chop it into salads. I put it on soups. I put it on just about everything.
Yeah, that's how I enjoy it. I love it.
I had somebody come over for dinner. They came twice, and both times I'd made a salad with a bunch of cilantro. Well, no, one of them I made a guacamole, cilantro, chili, lime guacamole. And they go, "You like cilantro, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't you?" And she's like, "No, it tastes like soap." I'm like, "Oh." So some people genetically, there's a gene that makes them that taste cilantro differently, where it doesn't taste good.
I saw actually that Chipotle posted something on like Instagram or Facebook or something, and it was like, "We do not support this ad." And it showed a picture of a piece of cilantro or on a bar of soap. And it said, "You might as well just eat this," or something like that. And I love cilantro, but I do know a lot of people who can't stand it. I actually know someone who's allergic to it as well. So
well, you can take the so for the answer to Don's question, the chelation would be with chlorella too. So you can take capsules of chlorella.
Does it sometimes come in a liquid form? I'm thinking of like chlorophyll maybe or something.
Yeah, chlorophyll. Yeah, and chlorophyll is a good chelator too, but for different things.
Okay, interesting. I hope that helps. And then it says, "Do I need a prescription to get it?" Oh, and he's wondering if you do telemedicine calls.
Yeah, but you have to be in California or Utah, because that's my licensing.
Yeah. Okay. I've recently stopped taking warfarin, and I hope to manage my blood clot problem, 2 prior leg clots. I would like some advice on how to thin my blood through natural sources.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is a great, gosh, we could do a whole webinar on this. So blood clots. Your blood should not be clotting in your veins. So what you need to know, I'm assuming it's veins, because if it's arteries, you're in big trouble. So what you need to know is, why is your blood clotting? Why is it pooling? Is there something missing? So sometimes it's valve problems. Sometimes it's inflammation like phlebitis. In that case, you got to get rid of the phlebitis. In other cases, like if the valves aren't working, or you have lack of tone in the veins, then there's supplements you can take. One of them is called pycnogenol. Another one is horse chestnut seed extract, and those will improve the flow through the veins so that you don't get clots as easily. But then also you have to think of repairing the lining. Remember, we've talked about this a lot. The lining of the blood vessels is amazing. It allows for total flow through the arteries and veins. And if that's damaged at all, then you get like little eddy, you start forming clots in there really easily. So it's a good idea to find out why you're getting clots instead of just using warfarin, because the problem with warfarin is it blocks your vitamin K, so you start getting calcium buildup in your arteries. And I have someone right now who's 86 years old, and he is dealing with all of his arteries are calcified because he was on warfarin for many years for atrial fibrillation. So it blocked the vitamin K, and it's vitamin K that takes the calcium out of your soft tissues like bone spurs and calcified arteries and puts it in your bones. So he has both things. He has osteoporosis and he has calcified arteries because he blocked his vitamin K for years. So I'm glad you're off warfarin. How do you manage it? First of all, if you've had 2 clots, then you've got to find out why that happens and deal with the why. By either fixing the arteries or improving the flow. And then consider also natural sources. So there's a book you can read called Reverse Heart Disease Now by Dr. Stephen Sinatra. And he goes into detail about the different kinds of blood thinners you can use for prevention of clots.
Okay. Sharon says, I was placed on a statin and ended up with pancreatitis. Thanks for this information. Is that a common correlation?
Pancreatitis from the statin? I don't know that if there's, no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Are the statin medications better than metformin?
Metformin actually, it's a toxin and it blocks your ability for your mitochondria to use sugar for energy. So it kind of forces you to make what's called cyclic AMP. So it changes your metabolism to fat burning metabolism. Yes, metformin is toxic, but with billions of doses given and very few problems, it's not that toxic compared to statin, which is quite toxic and has a lot of problems associated with it, especially people taking it long term. So yeah, I think I would take metformin before I would take a statin, but they're totally different reasons.
Yeah. Okay. Inez, should I take B12 for nerve pain? Is there any way to get rid of neuropathy?
Oh, you came to the right place, Inez. Okay, so if you're new, then you probably wouldn't have even heard of it. There's something called Nervala. So yes, when people come into me with neuropathy, when they come into my office, I give them a shot of vitamin B12. Before I even test for vitamin B12, I don't even care what their test shows. I'm going to give them a shot of vitamin B12 because that can help restore, repair, or improve nerve function by itself. But you still have to restore the blood flow, the oxygen to the nerves. That's all important too. So that's where Nervala comes in. Nervala has two things in it, alpha lipoic acid and benfotiamine, which is a vitamin B1, fat-soluble vitamin B1. And in fact, it was funny, I was telling the team last week, I put my dad on this because he had neuropathy. And so he's taking it now. I have to get back to him and ask him if it's working. Anyway, we've had a lot of people who've come on and said, oh my gosh, I started Nervala, my neuropathy is going away. So yes, Inez, do the vitamin B12. And if you can get a shot, that would be great because absorption is really limited. You can take a ton of vitamin B12 and you're still only going to absorb, a certain tiny amount of it, micrograms. Whereas if you get a shot, you can get 1 milligram. That's 1,000 micrograms in one shot, or 5 milligrams or whatever.
Okay. David says, is 200 to 240 total cholesterol HDL or LDL?
Okay. Thank you. Oh, I didn't even talk about that.
I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have what's called good cholesterol, HDL, and bad cholesterol, LDL. And that's not really the way it is. It just helps you to look at, you want the ratio to be the higher on the HDL than on the LDL. So you want not necessarily higher, but you want more HDL and less LDL as a rule. But so we're just looking at total cholesterol. This graph that I showed you, that's just total cholesterol. That's these numbers down here. That's not HDL or LDL. So is that relevant? Well, sort of. If you look at the cholesterol to HDL ratio and it's below 4, then you have a pretty low chance of getting any atherosclerosis of your heart due to cholesterol. There's other reasons you can get atherosclerosis from inflammation, for example, or something, or taking warfarin, like I said before. So yes, you can look at that ratio, but it's really not that complex. You don't have to look at it that complexity of what's my HDL to LDL ratio and is that okay? Really, if you just look at decreasing inflammation, improving metabolism, getting your triglycerides down, you know what? If there was no such thing as a statin, nobody would be doing the test, because they'd say, oh, that test doesn't mean anything anyway, because there's no good correlation. We talked about that last time when we talked about the hoax, the cholesterol hoax. We were talking more about how everybody was told that cholesterol was a big deal, a big risk factor, and it turns out that 60% of people with their first heart attack have normal cholesterol. So what does that tell you about how big this cholesterol myth is?
Yes. David also asked, on the chart that you show on death rates and cholesterol shows lower cholesterol and higher death rates. Is that age specific, or can other factors be causing higher death rates for low cholesterol?
Oh, yeah, they split it up into male, female. I don't have all the graphs here, but if you go on their website, go to Science, let's see, Nature Science, it's 7 February 2019. So it's just a few years ago. Okay. And they split it all up, and you can see all the graphs, and they all show essentially the same thing, that the lower the cholesterol, the higher the death rate. And the ideal cholesterol is always right around 220.
Interesting. Okay. The Garcia said their doctor told them that they were on the borderline when they were at 200 to 205.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Don says a website recommends taking 1 teaspoon of natural apple cider vinegar per cup of water 20 minutes before a meal. If forget, can take after a meal, and that will help to lower type 2. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Apple cider vinegar can be helpful. We actually have a supplement for that reason. We have lean ACV to help people with that. It aids in digestion. It aids in the acid in the stomach to digest proteins better. So there's just something about apple cider vinegar that's kind of helpful. So some people put it in their food. They put it, sprinkle it on their salads and eat it, or whatever, use it in their soups and stuff. And that's a good way to take it. Or you can just put it in water and drink it.
We also have the reflux reliever that has apple cider vinegar, apple pectin, licorice root, and honey in it as well.
Yeah.
It's another good one. I don't think I have oh, no, it's right here. That's the one I was looking for. Lean apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know what it looks like. There you go. All right. With so many good questions. I have a message here from the Garcias. Any further updates on Barton Nutrition's version of berberine? And I don't know anything yet. I think they were saying last week, like a week out, maybe.
Yeah. But he says, yeah, more than a week, but soon. Yeah.
That's all we know so far.
Yeah.
Okay. How much time do we have here? Okay. Let's see. Edward says, I just started taking berberine 400 milligrams with each meal yesterday. I'm looking for a reduction in glucose levels, but so far, okay, but one spike up to 317 and no reduction below my recent average of 208. I've also started the soleus push-up. How long before I get some results?
Wonderful. Keep doing the soleus push-up. Okay. So I want to reiterate what I talk about a lot, and that is, don't expect a pill to fix this problem. This is not a pill problem. It's a toxin problem. So you have to detox. Berberine is not going to detox your body. You still have to get all of the sugar out of your cells. You have to detox. So phase 1 of the program is a detox. That's what you're doing. You're stopping all of the carbs, not all of them. You get 20 grams of carbs, which is not enough to live on, so that your body can start using up all the extra sugar that's been stored and detox from all of that. So in spite of the berberine, whatever you're taking, whatever Synachroma or Nerval, whatever, none of that is going to be useful if you're not going to detox. You just have to do phase 1 of the program.
Roy said, what about niacin to clear the arteries?
Oh, niacin is wonderful, but it doesn't clear the arteries. It increases HDL, but it doesn't actually clear out the arteries. There's only one thing that's been shown to clear the arteries, and that's the very high fiber, low fat diet.
Okay. Roy said, I'm on 1,500 milligrams a night, and my artery scans seem to have cleared up significantly.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Okay, Don said the question about the angioprim has to do with the chelation of arterial blockage and high cholesterol readings. I believe you told me any product had to have EDTA.
Oh, the EDTA. Yeah, for removing. Oh, so what I said would be better than that is vitamin K, because vitamin K takes that calcium out of the arteries instead of the EDTA. Vitamin K takes the calcium out of the arteries and puts it in the bones. So vitamin K, and you can get a high dose vitamin K. I know it comes from Life Extension. I'm pretty sure Life Extension is the only one. They have a 45 milligram dose of vitamin K for people who have a lot of calcium deposits in their arteries. I use it. I do that test on people. That you can do a test called a coronary calcium score, and if your score is over 100, that's pretty high. If it's over 400, that's really high. I had someone come in over 1,000 last week, and those are the ones that I always put on this high dose vitamin K to take that out, and then we also do other things, whatever is needed.
Okay, what was the question? A couple questions here about people who would really like to be your patients. So he had mentioned if you're in California or in Utah, but if they wanted to be in touch with your office to do that, if they are located there, where should we send them?
Oh, 805-688-7171.
Hey, I could repeat those numbers that fast. I didn't know if my memory could do it. Oops, and I typed it wrong. You said 805, not 705. So
Yeah.
856887171.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. I'm going to just post that number there. Okay. Hey, my friend Anku is on. He's currently enjoying some warm weather in Ghana, West Africa.
Awesome.
Yay.
He's not going to have a white Christmas.
He's not going to have a white Christmas. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and you enjoy that warm weather. Okay. Oh, Roy did mention with the niacin, I think I do get itching sometimes when I eat certain foods. I'm assuming he was talking about the niacin.
Yeah.
Causing that.
Yeah, niacin does that. It causes a release of histamine. So it's kind of like an allergy.
Oh, that's what it is. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it gives you a prickly
Yes.
heat, kind of itchy feeling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Aubrey says, how much does a high fiber diet reduce cholesterol?
Wow, I've had people come down from the upper 200s into the upper 100s. It's highly variable depending on how much fiber you eat, and I mean, if you're like vegan and only living on fruits and vegetables, and you have no fat intake at all, it gets down, into the 100s.
Patricia says, what do you think about red yeast as a supplement?
Red rice yeast is essentially it's Mevacor. It's a statin. It's literally a statin, and you can lower cholesterol with it, but I don't usually recommend it. I don't think I've given it to anybody because I think it's better to use a dietary way of doing it instead of taking a supplement.
A couple questions about this. Can you reverse type 2 with diet only? And does it have to be plant-based only? No meat.
Oh my goodness, you haven't read our book yet. So look in the diabetes reversal kit and you'll see a ketogenic diet. And yes, we do have a lot of free foods that are high fiber foods, and they're all vegetables. You can eat as much broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts as you want. But you actually are allowed meat too. It's you can have meat, fat. You just decrease the carbs. It really is what the diet is.
Glenn said, what was the name of the coronary something score test?
Oh, coronary calcium score.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emmanuel was wondering if they need to stop eating red meat, like cow meat and goat meat, to avoid fat.
Well, not necessarily. Yes, the issue sometimes if you have clogged arteries, then getting off meat is a good idea, because there hasn't yet been any study on meat, a high meat diet, that reverses clogged arteries. People do the carnivore diet and they do the ketogenic diet, and those are generally high fat kinds of diets with a lot of meat, and it's great for diabetes, and that's kind of what we do. We recommend our phase 1 part of the program, but if you want to reverse heart disease, getting off fat is a really good idea. That seems to be the only thing that reverses or improves. It takes the cholesterol out of the arteries.
Okay. A good question here. I'm currently suffering with diabetic erectile dysfunction. How will Niagara help, or is this just another Band-Aid remedy? And what makes this different from these dangerous pills often given? And what else should I be doing to completely cure this dreadful condition? Please help.
Okay. So the answer to your first question is yes. And the answer to your second question is I don't know. And the answer to the third. Okay, so is Niagara XL, is that something that should be taken for diabetic erectile dysfunction? It's going to work in a limited number of people with limited benefit, and because that's not the primary issue. You still have to get rid of the diabetes. You still have to be on the diet. You have to do phase 1, and you have to get the insulin resistance down. You have to get your blood vessels working well, because that's what erectile dysfunction is about, is the function of the blood vessels. So if they're not functioning well, all the Niagara XL in the world isn't going to work. So in many cases, it's just a Band-Aid. You really need to do the program and get your nerves working right and your blood vessels working right. And then things work again.
Robert said, my lab test for insulin was right in the middle of the graph for normal. Do I need to keep taking Lantus?
Lab test for insulin. So if you're on Lantus, that the insulin test will probably be reading your Lantus as well, because that's a very long-acting insulin. If you do a C-peptide test, that'll tell you if your pancreas is making insulin, and it won't read the Lantus. So then you can determine if you need the Lantus or not.
Okay, someone asked about Farxiga. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like it. It can lower blood sugar. It has its own problems. It prevents sugar from being reabsorbed in the kidneys. And so it's being used a lot as a diuretic too, because it makes you get rid of water. So it makes you dehydrated, and it puts sugar in your urine. And I just don't think it's an answer to anything. I think that you're much better off doing phase 1 of the program.
Okay. Let's see. A couple more minutes. Okay. What is your perspective on a carnivore diet for long term? Minus maybe for heart health.
Yeah. For people with type 2 who are toxic on sugar, and they go on a carnivore diet for, I don't know, long-term, years probably, or for the rest of their lives, as long as they're careful and they make sure that they're getting the other things they need. I don't know how you're going to get fiber on a carnivore diet, but it can work. It can work.
Okay, Robert said it.
Everybody's different. You know, that's interesting. I've had people, I'm just thinking about it. I've had people on both sides. I've had people doing the carnivore diet and saying, yeah, you know, I did it for whatever, a few years. And then I found I was missing something. And so I started eating vegetables again and I got better. And I've had people go the other way and say, I only feel good when I'm on a carnivore diet. So I couldn't say as a blanket statement for everybody that it's not a good idea. Um, and it doesn't, if you're not eating sugar, it doesn't like create or cause heart disease either by itself. But it does increase mTOR, so people tend to have shorter lifespans on a carnivore diet.
Okay. Robert had asked you about the insulin. Let's see, I can't remember his question fully. The lab test for insulin, and he said it was a C-peptide test that he had done. It was in the middle of the graph.
Okay, so if your C-peptide is in the middle, you probably can do it all with diet and you wouldn't need insulin. So that's a good way to look at it, is if you look at the C-peptide and the normal numbers are around 1 to 3, right? That's it, just between 1 and 3. So if you're right in the middle, if you're at 2, then you know your pancreas is making enough insulin for you to function normally. In which case you wouldn't need to inject extra insulin.
Okay.
If you're doing the diet.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. The next question is from Queen Tafari asking about Rybelsus. It is a semaglutide tablet.
Yeah. Semaglutide. Okay. I don't like them because one of the effects of semaglutide is to increase insulin. And by doing that, you increase insulin resistance. So yes, you get your lower blood sugar, just like it says, but at the price of causing more insulin resistance. So you're actually making the problem worse, even though the symptom is better.
Okay. One of the things that you had mentioned, I think this is what this question means. This will be our last question. Also, the Garcias posted the link to that journal article in the chat, or in the chat, so you guys can see it. But you had mentioned that when people eat meat, it often does something with the mTOR. Is that what you said? What is that? What is mTOR?
Oh gosh, we could do. Okay. So mTOR is a gene that's turned on. It's the mammalian target of rapamycin.
He just pulled that out of his brain, you guys.
Yeah, rapamycin. So it's a gene that causes you to make more protein. So when you eat more protein, this gene turns on so that you can build up proteins in your body, like muscles. Oh. So people who are, like bodybuilders and they want big muscles, they eat a lot of protein so that they can increase their mTOR and build big, huge muscles. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is mTOR is a anabolic hormone that also increases your risk of cancer, because it says grow muscles, but it also says if you have like a cancer hidden somewhere, it also tells that to grow too. And so you tend to get more cancers, and people who have high mTOR levels don't live as long. And so what's really interesting is that the name of it is the mammalian target for rapamycin. And rapamycin is being used now as an anti-aging drug because it blocks mTOR. So then they're saying, oh, I can eat all the protein I want and then take rapamycin so that I don't get, so that I don't have the ill effects from it. I don't know any long-term effects of that, but I'm just really suspicious that that's not going to work very well.
Sometimes I'm like, can we go back to the biblical days of however they ate? Because it seems a lot easier than trying to figure out all of this stuff sometimes.
So well, isn't that like Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
There's a Daniel fast out there as well.
And they said, we just want regular food. Just give us regular food. We don't want the king's meat, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, interesting. But Anyway, okay, we've talked too much. We've got to be done. Dr. Saunders needs to go see his patients, but this has been a really good webinar. And thank you so much. We'll see you next week, Dr. Saunders.
All right. See you.
Bye. Merry Christmas to all of you guys and to Dr. Saunders. You'll probably catch this replay. We're so glad that you guys are here with us each week. Come back, invite a friend. It's a free webinar. So you can bring your questions. And that's what I love about this webinar is that we get to ask Dr. Saunders questions for free, which is amazing, which is very difficult to do anymore, right? So thanks again. We look forward to seeing you next week and have a blessed time with your family and friends. We're very thankful for you guys. So Merry Christmas. See you next week.